the bank na enum de be me yi kakra e bia na reason no de ma enum na so oni wo mo nya adwen dia but as Dr. Tu Ahina e kan ye no solution no emom no na me yen feel say wo man fa ekwan pass nko betumi asua fi 2009 international financial crisis no senia America for ni Europe no almost resolve omo de no banks na no ma distress no because of mortgage market impact no woman you go in there you supervisor no na say management any issue governance problems in there you take over the bank now the managers are call try say omo be improve conditions na ho ne and omo work na bibia until say be restore bank no, of course you have to inject some capital into the bank until say be restore bank no back to viability na fi wa withdraw enokra no sika wo spend no bank no be ba benya profit ekra pay you back
okay
but the idea ni there eno say decide say oh we are classifying so ye tier 3 or so no yen collapse no and say ye merge omo na strangely no most of the banks now either some collapse or na some merge omo no almost entirely local banks of course you expect to say local banks no adena omo mum na no facing major challenges because we are so much linked to the domestic economy now. And those days, the economy now is almost like it's in a crisis. When the banking sector and the real sector of the economy, they are closely linked. In the real sector, if the real sector is not doing well, it may affect banks no? Because so because Skefi Bank no, not the Koye Juma, maybe on 20 year back. Most of the debtors, of the banks no, now government. Almost government edi omoka e be a government contractors money ade enti se wo hwa na bi dey so pass some of the banks because no more finance contractors pa enti senka government grant me tia contractors ne ka na almost koko tia banks ne ka ke bia e betua help banks no enti ne ye kan say and who here can say Bank of Ghana and only governor and say IMF for no dictated to no say uncle close banks no I mean I know there and
no so can say IMF for the can
say no now alternative say we want to offer any alternative yeah until the fact say omko mu na omko collapse banks and omo merge na local banks can affect you I say no Ghanaian ownership of the banking sector no are diminishing. And it's not good for us because economy, I say, Ghana for a own, not only banking sector, extractive, telecos. I say own, your mobile say ownership, you be increasing. You are retaining foreign exchange in this country. Now, you are providing jobs to people near there. And the Oma approach, was not right. And almost spending over 20 billion because it is a 20 something billion. When Crawford, I estimate say. Anka omo adopt to the other approach in Kranke be almost spending more than 10 the issue also is that another issue is omo banks now omo call close to be no fe omo merge omo no at least a year capital now omo say omo snap ni aden say come try say omo be recover scan bi and also recoveries no yenim ne no so akwakosi nke say recoveries no because almost set up recovery institution and so am recover bi no government no eti sika so bi and also yenim say near recoveries na akwakosi and going forward ni them say we must do everything say Ghanaian ownership of the banking sector you try say you better restore
asamba ko aba aban kan say eno ti no gina so e de egu banks how don say or see almost save depositors and as a customers no omo deposits say Ghana for musika ho no omo save omo bom sika ho ban e de ama omo pe de omo ye no omo Ghana for sika ho ban ampani ampa se de yehunu no ya na se yeti ye no na se dom kan no
well me hu how how be born so omo e born nyina ho ban a ka de na government so inject so much money into the system. The government can cost system ni mumu na omutumi di tia a customers neka se nka omo bo well omo kasa omo bo ho ban a it's already omo divertis can into various customer deposits managers no and because of that since na government so inject sika ko such that omo betumi atua customers no back and is omo kasa omo the protect customer deposits
okay. But I say Ambassador Sampiel is over cancer, Ambassador Yamakwaba, and that's Papa, and Womre. Mamimra, Minko, Minia Sansana, with him French and Sana, and as a Sansana, and as Saturday, Mabreso and Sansami Egokupi. Would say Dr. Chia Henny, as some more kind, say, Nanke betwimi aye be fufuru bi esese be gunu kra mo ase aban a mo sa bre na mo abreso na bank ni nyina egu ye no na was that the last option and now say na there was an alternative and sana ebia mo ye ya kwan bi ese fa so bia ese fa so ya ma na duro bia duro na anye no na wawu ana say ye ma na duro ye be push na manako emu de wo he na mutumi nye ho bibia ma na nye ye
you doc
me doc da
bia na o enche o de na beba me da sepa machia na machia mpanimfo emze me mpanimfo kwa na abepie show no so ne na me boss Sampiali nso asa wa ba bedu enti me ma obia nso akwaba na machia tiefo nyina banking sector same way ye kan ya na edru ne kana na akoye kana kakra no kreba akon apie mu se enam said the banking sector reforms no ebaye no kresa nkrofo bi behwere omo adwuma pa de toso mienu no krenso se ebi behwere sika kwan bi so nanso eya na ye bisa ye ho se na ye den ye ba bedru ha usha by the time sa banking sector reforms see this current one year the withdrawal of licenses see by na ubekaya banks ne bebre omo ankasa ma out embe kan say ye insolvent just say ye sika se mo ato apia ye ntumi nya adwuma biom no nanso the very common one aye nyina ye tie ye no was the one na maame bi koji 200 Ghana cedis one of these savings and loans ekodane entokwa ekodane kutu
and savings and loans
okay. Maybe na osha emse ye mpenimfo ni mienu kasa ye no the impression I am getting is abine to me anye ho hwe na nka say ye bibi ansana those withdrawals no yaye ubisa me a memetumi aka cho say me nso madwen ye me say nanka kwan bi so wo ho anka ye betumi afa ye withdraw licenses na immediately sir nanso ye refi say ana ye kasa na ye ja no wo say in 2016 no late 2015 to 2016 no ye aban no efa oman ni sika every Bank of Ghana eso banks yi bi ase na uhwe sika ekomu na eno so na ekọ animu kakra na ansa na ye beka se sika kora bia bi ye koso na asene no na kire se onu ankasa no ni sika odi ye adwuma no na bia akofo ana se ni nyuma ye bi ni niama ye bi entumi enkoyi entumi support na business no enti no sa niama ni enti no aban ema no bailout ya the bailout no ema wo mu asabre no na aban na adwene ye ne se omuhia amwa no ma won bibi kakra so mumfa nso asen ya nim say ebinya 1.2 billion. I was just reading about the amounts na ekọ ye no omo kan say Ghana Commercial Bank emfa UT any first two no 2017 banks no UT ne
Unibank
I think so me take it but so those two banks no one no em say about 2 billion or so ekọ shame the sikana free GCB ekoko so omo asene na ya ban no ana oman ni sika na wo mo a edi akira e baaye emra Bank of Ghana mra no ekire se sanka ye kofa o man ni sika unza IMF for the year and debia de ebia wo tie ya onim se de sitie no unza ye koji sika wa IMF a na mo apa abadwafo bi se munko tena o so de ye bia na mo ani tuam ye kwa wa hwe ya ukoton kran do kono kra o mo se kran do kono we de untumi nto ukofa nkrofo adwuma we de ukofa nipa anhwa na wantumi antu aka na wanya sika ma ambetua yenka nti omu ankasa eye sa anhyehyɛ no mu ye nhyehyɛ ebeboa wo a ubetumi atua omu sika ma wo mo ana sɛ ubetumi agina wo nan so the Bank of Ghana mranso emma ehye Bank of Ghana kete se bibi sa koso na wo a bank ni sika no ho atochima na sɛ sika na akofom na se obman no kofa sika wo baabi dia ba be so mo asene a pa obi a obagina wo mo so no no so ayeti se de IMF for ye ya na yesu na oyesa sika no de nti a wo de sika no ma wo mo no omo de be yesa de na pepepe ye ukai Bank of Ghana report na omo de buy after the clean up na de nti omo ye ni niam omo ye no ewo mu se sa sika na ye de ma bebre no ebi wo ho no mu ade enti pa ye beji sika no se ebi a ye sika ye de ye adwuma akofom nti no ye pese ye hia sika kakra de ahye adwuma no no sika na nko wie ba bia na esese ko wie
butaye nti omkwaji sika no omo afanya sa de
omo afa nko ye say in fact part of the report ni chere say ebi di bia ko directors bi di bia ko to dan wa ma no ne niama ebi di abi enwuma foforo e wo Ghana ha in fact ba akokra de ye chere say oji sika no no em so di ko to shares in another Ghana government bank o say then ebi di ko bi bank foforo in fact bank youth ye fan say UTV bank UTV bank enya sikasem problem kakra Bank of Ghana abeso nasne ko fakosha UTV bank mu no dia ko bi anit FM bank enti sa niama ni nyina ka ho na yakofa oman ni sika ni bi ama wo mu na omo antumi anhwe so no afi no sa abre no obi obeka no kra be kai se na ye wo under IMF control enti bibia ye bia fa yan sikasem ho no na omo so omo ani tuam nti no company fortuna ase no na che se ebi wo ho no mu a se ye ma bank foforo beji a na ya ye ne sa enum a na ye de beti consolidated bank a ye pay sika every echire ediko shemu a ye see there in fact na me kan I was just reading the press statement na omu release this at time no na press statement no kan niama bi na me underline ya de ba ko kan ya worthy of note ni say some of them no omusika semato api de to so mienu wo mu a omu ye consolidate wo mu no eye bebre wo hono a omu nso ankasa kura no ba bia omu aduru no aye so omu ankasa da life support later ye beti say ebi wo hono mu ananka omu say omu de onka omu betumi abo wo mu a omu ho bra in fact I'm say doc can about Parkway syndrome at a point in time no omo downgrade GN Bank to GN Savings and Loans. And the GN Bank say on one or apply here. So mo say me see.
No, omo de mano.
Omo de somewhere along the line, no, they started operating as a savings and loans for some time. But be na omo challenge no koye kese no was omo an omo and I say omo you know what's the name? Omo investment house, no your friend say. Omud beye no black something the Gold Coast ombesi san idini and a black baby no na it wasn't under Bank of Ghana nti no ho asem ne depositors ni sika isa say edima o mo ni niama na ho akoba asem kakra but the American akosi ani say ya so banks no banks ya so biasne from the beginning sika na nko wie ba bi eseseko nti em so they made the final decision and no nkura ampo no minye ni say Bank of Ghana for nko an etenase wo hwe make reports are making in sometimes na IMF for any tuemu den enti no na mo be make sa decision no me de bia make am on several platforms then time are issues ne ba say ka me nko a anka de enkrofo ye yi mpanimfo ni bi si nchen in fact America de na ye ka ebi ko ofiase o ye yi mpanifo ni si nchen a ye san di sika shame no be asem we me ko bisa wo baabi nchiremu e ba ye ni se wo hwe Beige Bank na ye mfa ne se Beige Bank ɛna UT bank ɛna wokofa all those banks no ebi wo hɔ wokɔ building back mu a banks yi miɛnsa nan na ɔmo wɔ building back mu nti ɛsɛ ye bibi nti ɔmo yɛ consolidated no de ehu hia anase de nipa na akɔdɔso they have to become profitable my mfi say business practices na e ma ɔmo anye profitable la ɔmo ankasa sika san ya aban be so ɔmo asene no we cannot continue like that
me da se wo kasa no kasa bi
me wie wa ha na wa to aso enti ensem na esisi ye occasion sa decision na ɔmo make ye no me ne with the benefit of hindsight me be a question be the entire year consolidation no and I say yeah withdraw license no have we achieved it
and any asem no
number 1 number 2 ni say said the tie biara my enremfi say there is another problem especially the savings and loans. I did a study on the savings and loans. This thing came up in America, savings and loans crisis yabada, and somebody William K. Black, go and check his book. I think he's on Amazon. With some $21 or $30, you can buy one. Or chire the entire na book no din say the best way to rob a bank is to own one. So person we are banker, would be a bank. The entire account say no book no. But ni tintin ni tieti ani say it's a 384 page book. But ni tintin ni tieti ani say woman so usha de asem a owura mo abin kan fa ho a o se akromfo nso ba pie sector no ti de oye na adwuma papa bi a genuinely na adwuma na perform ene de ono nso okọ odi sika no ye de ope a eni se odi ye omo nyina ba pie sector abi affect omo nyina
me da se na pese bisa won sembi pese bisa won sembi se de be ya ko so ma breso na ekoko ba sa se obi ena odi sika na ma banks no aban bi abreso dis kan ma banks so mo fanya adwuma ena abia o dis kan so mo asene no wanyi management na nsi nchen afa management foforo ama ai no ntin says kan o de ma no eye basade a
fa yen mra kire se wo pa obi na
okotena sa enti ena abia yen fa no se wan pa obi ankwa nkotena no so omo so
ha yanye e ka ho
enti abia ena yanye enti yanye no aba foforo bae no okay sanka emra ne chese ka modern kofo kotena ho a anka banks no edisika ne de so mo de ye e no man fa kotena ho okay ye de yaba ye de mra ne be adwuma ye disika bi besan ama mo na mo ye be man kofa betena ho ahwe se adwuma na mo be ye ne se da mra ne tie no ama adwuma na koye sa pepepe basa option na wo ho no man fa sa option no anya adwuma straight away na no bang esa se utie UT bank owura mo aben a o se oni finance minister kanu for that time pay for shia e be so bi shia juada na o se on the akebe kura na omo end downgrade no say UT bank no be UT service loans kura kenya hwe no ahudi obeye no benada juada benada no mugu bank no eti utie alagi say do agongo a ono kwaje bi say bi Bank of Ghana Bank of Ghana fosi kanim ayo no ani sika and the customer sika no dey run business no the japade owo nyina ne dan wasisi bank ne branches nyina Heritage Bank
or the capitalize no
or the yes or the so masin nyina the land cruises ototo nyina no Bank of Ghana capri nim Bank of Ghana gen license no wa fast as can act on sanya mani nyina a capre kwa amon no nchen
entiase wo
I didn't tell you.
See, and I make us some way and now can ne can acquire can kakra. Entiase wo mu ne say. The di kan ansa na omo bedru ba bia na ye gina no. Bebre wo ho no mu ana enhwehwemu na kire say ono ne de ne in particular no was under contention. Nti me can me generalizing no, not specifically to him. But ekos dru ba bia na wo mu ankasa sika e di kan na asa. Ana na ekofom kura. De toso mienu ni wo mu ayema wo msika no nti na eche se ono de di kan ono ane de na asa de oman ni sika nso aye de koma no no nso no wanfa anya adwuma esese ye de
ono ababi oman ni man sika bia
na me kan se ni de no de nti akoye different ni say de nti pa me kan say be from the beginning say with the benefit of hindsight de ama bi wo ho no mu asanka me kura mpo na me make that decision na me I will make it differently because media maka wa mama call of them nti mama mfa wi wa ha maka say if I have to make those decisions anka de adi kan mema wo mo ankasa se obia we ne ye sika korabia ye bank esese wunya sika bi esese bank na ankasa no wankasa o capital adequacy ratio no should be something say call for mo a kona ko pebra na mama wo mre say omu koye ye de wo mu fa asa kwan no so na ono ankasa ko na se wankwa ankonya sika no na ho de ankwa ankoso ono abeba be pa o che say eja wada roma ya me ebo ami o so masene ye yusu in America say ebia ye me wo obi foforo the decision would have been different.
And we can say
it would have been a direct withdrawal.
Yes.
But it also does not make the withdrawal of the licenses illegal. In America say na ne kana.
Would you say sana moto na ban ni 2 year no?
Yes,
wasn't the best.
And I said, and American said, with the benefit of hindsight, I have questions.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, mami, we were having 1 minute. With the number two, no, they say, if it were you standing there, say, I will be some question. Me and me jina high, me are no be different from who na we jina high.
That's it.
It's a Doctor
Mama Brown Baking Canina, Mammy call Ambassador Sampia Lusutia, wana memra na fi yehwe wotie yen Dr. Gongo edin komo pa na o kan sen bi me pese ye be center conversation no e wo no kwane de no ho ye be ka fa wo aka ni nyina na nka ye hwe kwan se papa Kwasin Dum na na musini nso be ba na nka ono nso se do mo de tie na nka be ka ba no nya duru he de ye de ni nyina be ka ho na eduru amaben ne de ka ho nyina ka ho ye hwe owura Gongo ka se mi o se ono na the Bank of Ghana sika bi ani ni nchen onye kapre nye tro o man kapre eni ni ho ena se bi mpo a se wo mo se ono na ebi onye na do mo downgrade no na nka otumi nya na adwuma eno a anye yi ena afi egu se wom enti na se edan yesi so oni nyina na ono a ne dan enye oman ena de ma no aban sika no de yeye land cruises ototo de ma ono ne nkrofo nyina anya aman sika enso saa ono ne ja pade ya adan ho do branches wo sisi no oman ji ni nyina oman tonton ni nyina ne land cruises ni sika so otoma ne directors wo ji ni nyina atonton ni nyina ne sika so a wa bank wono so a eno so ma ji ni nyina nti se ono ne mo ne bo no ne fifire no ni nyina ahwere no ambassador mo mabre so no na mo no says kasam to na shedan ko 2015 2016 dey nim say shedan ko yi mo so masene nti aban second aban ba yi na nado aban ba yi any dey see no was that not the best option a ebetuma boama sa munsu bofo say you best sanitize the banking system no
Agya Kwabena, the master me had discussed with us several times. Now I am the adade nekase and also with benefit of hindsight. Because on the same table, we defended the margins several times that the government was right. You see, there's a document here. In the Akademia banking sector, and I decided to read it. That is a Japadia document. It's one of the most disgraceful documents any Ghanaian can read. Now, what are the imperatives of this document? Are there Ghanaian biara or in the Gwasi or Bakinkandam Bukun? Say, Yerike say, Chief, under the Munda banking sector, when you papa, na I master Susinum. Ye na yentum who saying to Kupotia on them the banking, wogun there a control for you now, woguni. No, Obia man, pointy biara. O Sunday, work at Ubogu banking. Several things happened. One of it in the voluntary is the capital ratio and capital adequacy. Capital requirement. From a certain level, 120 to 400. 120 to 400 million. Now, bank sikasoso. Oh, sabi won't galamseya. What is can do go? Oh yeah, take for some poor dama. Na bank and what did you be nobody a bank in the jetu. It is a increase from 120 to 400. Na a patch that she can one cup of bossa will be no fan by another one for you then. Say, teacher, is a person for better what you are. What's it for insurance? By the insurance bar, I say for quarter license, brad. No quarter license was a boot. And you boot, that's if you tie. Say, I am wondering the bank in the Buguna, maybe be around a Bogun. You will find a reason for dissolving the bank the way they did. You were a man CCFO, near what a man boyful. McCade, a man paying for. No, started there or a financial inclusion. It's okay there. Or what they Ghana for, so when ya foothold war the banking sector. Now, what do that time? And no, there, a officer in a bank of Umboa, but there, Bejabusa. Now, a man paying for one can the banks will not encounter problems. Because as any human institution, you may encounter situations like that. And now, our dente, banks na no way human, or if you want focus. Today, Kusundum, he was concentrating on contractors, market women, and others. The only banks are either commercial bank or GN Bank. GN Bank had more branches than any other bank as far as I know. And they were closer to the market women. Now, I can raise the capital adequacy from 122 to 400. You have created a bar of impossibility for some of them. And knowing that, you would then know that banks are affiliated politically. I'm told that they were given support. I'm told they were, I say, me fact, correct him. 2 banks were given support of 800 million cedis. So just that they can make the bar. Why not the others?
Oh, one amount support.
Prudential Bank. And the report that I read, it's a report, but some banks were given support. That's some said the report in the
Okay.
But that's a report.
Okay.
Yes.
No, we are mature.
But that is my belief as of today. Now, even if that belief is not funded, even if that my belief that some banks were given that support is not funded, the rational thing to do in a situation like this in there, what is the ownership relationship of this bank? These are Ghanaians competing with Nigerians and foreign banks. SGSSB, if you ask them to bring the money, when you have fiscal support. All right? But loans are SGSSB, Oberman, on farmer market women, on farmer taxi drivers, or the bottle treasury bills.
Yes.
Now, at the end of them, was so many profit in or So, as a president, when you are confronted with a decision like that now, you have to look more beyond the figures and look at the impact on your economy there. Hey, Nigeria farmer, Nigeria for them the profit will not come to us, the profit will go away. The other thing is a rational president should know in there. What is the workforce of these banks put together? And majority of this workforce were Ghanaians, right? So if you instantly withdraw the license now, the following day, other banks will fold up. What happens to the Ghanaian workforce? A rational president would have to look at that. Okay? Now, is that the only alternative available? I had Mr. Etuahini those days preference several alternatives. Look, say our factory. Now, managing director no jisika, wo go factory na. You change the managing director and you put in, nowadays they put in interim management committees so that the workforce will be protected and the bank itself will be protected. In any case, what catching hand over 9 billion, huh? No, what are solve problems at banks now or one, which means that all the depositors now all bank in the money also they were going to be sorted out. Chief, how would they expect? As at today, banks and customers now, how they be also sorted out?
No. Maybe that's so.
Into 9 billion now, okay, see 25 billion. What you know, what the year then? So maybe I call bank and was okay, you 200 citizens when you've been to close the bank now. Damn, my minister says, go to Kawa. The last time I checked in, they were giving a friend and papers. Papers for 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years, about this year. In some time ago, name institution about this year. In Sika, you had to hold the audio to cut you a friend of free senior high school, another day hospital, you had to cut your coffin workout. So the question is,
nti ne sɛ sika no ɛwɔ he because ɛsisi etumi hu baabi sika no ankasa mpa sɛ adeɛ no sɛ ɛde 9 billion ɛbɛyɛ
fantifo what's the adabanda one da samdo
yo mate
nti chapter
I'm saying here auditing these are the areas
the bad doc etu ahene so na watumi akyire mu
so you said you needed 9 billion how did it rise to 25 billion now at the same time I want to saw the what this kind of one so one farm one. The last time I was going to Cape Coast at Brewer, I parked and virtually fought. Because on the left side, because in the bank branch now said those days in baby where can use Serco Brewer, going down the left side where can use. So those days never can fishmongers one track is your why jiskada kokumasa cotton nam no this can have the same day. You marvel. The last time I got there, no, were auctioning motorbikes now they were auctioning it. Computers now they were auctioning it. In the question of this Kakakota banking, said that go this Kakakota banking, heritage for Nadina was called the banking, and abandoned Saturday. Aramubia. And the one's not on one muscle account. The one's an adje, a Ganesikaso 25 billion account. Jacob. Iye kwa another yabe. Make say, Bank of Ghana nala no over there. Osha one. Nalumpo 1 year no about 70 billion. And in literature we say, if gold rust, what would iron do? Bank of Ghana nala on when yakukudu. Why chicken olu gong for there one best school in time. Nala why you let also lumpongwari. About 70 million CDs and consistently for 3 years. Obaka 60 billion. Obaka consistent Obaka for 3 years. Obaka
2022.
So
I figure Oboka.
So who watches the watchman? Watchman alone no sham robbers were shooting. So if you were crashing Heritage Bank, not because he had not achieved the capital adequacy, but just because he had a case in court.
Now, according to a case, now what was the case, now a bank,
in our jurisprudence, a person is assumed innocent and is proven guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. Into the fact that more case were court, what has that got to do with my banking license? So the wickedness of the government at the day is the result of what we are seeing. On any banking sector, bibiara. On any friend then bank of phone, you establish CBG, Mr. Dr. Kwaji. CBG, what is their performance now?
Consolidated Bank.
What is their performance? What is their performance now?
But how many banks?
Seven banks, no any consolidated. What the bomb? Banks and them CBG, how is it performing now? It's even worse than some of the banks. So we're there trying to consolidate the banks, diminish it and buy it. like we have done in other sectors. The banking sector cleanup is, I call it, like I always do, it's a banking sector fraud on the people of Ghana.
Okay.
And I urge President Mahama, as a matter of urgency, he promised there, or restore some of the banks' non-licenses. We have experts here who can help them, the government, to do that urgently, because we need that very urgently.
Yes. And there's so many IMF renegotiating.
Yes.
So IMF has to come in somehow. So anyone renegotiating.
Yes. Mark green light now. Let's go ahead and know what you mean. Yes.
Negotiations on the IMF, they should put it on the table.
On the table.
So we need to restore local ownership.
We need to have ownership. Please, Mama Nkasa.
Okay.
I am saying, sir, President Mahama should assemble experts like this and immediately restore those licenses that can be restored.
Yeah.
Let's say a better problem because that is the reason why our economy collapsed instantly.
Dr. Chiahene, and come here, dear, and Martina Sargent, and maybe one may join who said one more Oyeri Jetri so of Enija. Na Abia, Sikana demand on Yamana Cotton Bayano, a perishable product. And Abia one story ye and a nina essay. And now who you say, I dare Tony or the bay, and now we nanka so and a one ho. Okay, Messamos can be you. Oko Faba, but modern so beho. And now this kind of man, and I want to me uncle or buy and also. I said no no, I said down who ye papa na I when ye be. And to back us over more, you read Jumaya cra. And now so by what you say, now no Faba. Mamma say, Messia Honamono, I believe be a sene beya, ye be a scar, I may a cotton for some beton. Now for years from 2015, Bano. The year good banks, no. And in the Mahodan came to me a report in a winning in an which about the top of the Amaya and Kamada was a pa.
Made I say, made honorable, so I say, and doc and a master. I mean, as some I in a can, you can't go see back up. A way any war woman, and your pet. Oh, say, ye dear one brama. They say, ye do banky away, almost nearly 70% the abra and go for the old. Our war, and that war on the best or more color. Economy ni be goose ho. And I know he can so SG. Now I'm more so giddy governor from no see a cock. Secopa say you woman in a qua. I have one a baby. Until or maybe Oko UK. The Lloyds Bank, the Barclays, the
Stanshards.
One more fun to say a ma any attitude woman. And I know a Scotland Bank here gave away, be real for the day. When him say the woman needs to breed this cash when neck bank in a mom's cano. Because Segua local economical. But yeah, I'm said you can first and go for one test here. Abrodos will cream. Abromunya Abrono. And a doctor Quachina here, make say you dim attempts and a doctor Tianich train on Kwana school. I agree any back of 14. If many a casa or can send be as some kind a part of banking system. And your friend, near friend, and lender of last resort. And IMF want to say, I be your friend emergency liquidity support. No what da. Central Bank net dear back and says will be quite here one. As a super mount Busumi bear me and son. No amount sika. If it Nancy cried the treasury book, so treasury book ran here could see actually doing the man near fat. Any a demand for. Ya demand for more money at the any mine. Said you now can what my risk to Muko or to Jenny. Would you also go to Jenny and one also go to Jenny? Would you own him say Jenny and Obaka of had a friend Jenny? And so maybe I any blame owners no. That time the regulator also so a part of it. Well, Nani Pani be oha, you can't hear blame owner. Owner or Bob Weska, I won't go can 120 million. Yeah, what Mimi will be crank community bank. Come message $1 the Asia for med demand. Because me who say me kote pe near timidin pe near ibegunu na uguna we are no go for Nigeria for bank aba Ghana enti de omo ka no de meka akosie ni say omo mo wani mre na say license ni ahwehwe mu ni ate ni de nkrofo de be ma omo ni apekwan abo aman no a momma yamwa me nua yikasa me ma no figures a honest papa honorable crowd here o kan sika bi 9 million enti sa me di data ni nyina wa 2022-09 2022 Oforiata say was spending 18.9 billion, which was 4.5% of the GDP.
18.5 billion.
Aye. Ena
2019.
2019 yeah, in 2022 yeah, ena 2019 almost time. I am a former bar say no. Any afraid Bank of Ghana for any afraid Minister of Finance. Almost say only 15.7 billion. Neighbor, yenwe. Nana do kojina Sona, the 7th Sona also was say 21 billion.
State of the Nation address.
Last one.
Also, I said 21 billion. Meaning, I was starting from 15. Well, I am from the Amano. I go 18. I go 21. I didn't know how can so. And you be ano. All my transit could have been Mrs. Canocraco. Because Papa Quesindu. I always say, Okoya quine. A year with a hoopa, more pet quine roots. And I'm looking at Papa Coboy any rules. So we pia papa ko do 2.6 billion ma no anka ne bank no angu honorable anka bank no papa ko sin dum kangu hwese
o mane de ne ka
e mane me ka me di be sin ne e na wo ko no tie na wo ko no mo di ka road 35 billion energy $3 billion wo ka bo mo 80 billion mo ja ho nti wo tie ya governor no ne nyansa bia wo be kofi o kan ya no officer ya ni adwini bo yetirimu bom o see 5 of the banks in Ghana are capitally deficient. Maminchiro, and na papa ekano. Tamo wo gu no okofa gat bi ba Prudential agu Merchant Bank agu ba ko eka ho ne de ba ko bi so ka ho. Ono so o mo nyina agu. Ene wasan man krofo akoya akwan. It is a yakase we say Mahama. Say one thing nyamisro ni nyamedwen no so begu 5. Kono so begu 5 o. Ni e bom pa say onya ni a wo no mo ye no. We can reference the debt and give us okay ya be that 2012 for time handyman Papa Mills. Na ye Ghana for the car. Na IMF for say more reference na mo ma credible payment plan. Some of the member banks no. Omo ye. Even 2016 before you took over I will tell you the debt, the contractor's debt was 3.2 billion cedis. The energy was $800 million. And now mobile no say hey, Kufuado more reference na moye na mutuaye. Walk on, when you 35 billion. Sika bia ye jano banking mono. And the Kenya no a car park was a car power. Also because or the 370 billion, 370 billion, yeah. And you obisiko, opaying, and you obisiko. A bank scan your crack electricity, no, they call electricity to buy. What on untia now by non performing. May catch your governor now or T. Or buy a non performing 17.3% of the GD the loan. Oko Ghana saying, none of credit crocodile don't be away. IMF Wabahane 24.6 June. And I know Wabakono drop on about 21.8 billion. Krobia may can in a theatre uncle for. Krobia, nyam na meko papa kwa achi kotina ho no mko ye. Oko IMF 10 years no ye. O say Krobia will non performing ebro 10%. Your banking sector is gone. Nyam na meka deteriorate and good.
And the end the other say.
Yeah, you know average year between 14% to 21% over the last 10 years. Me no maybe a debt amount. Nti yan hwe banking sector because any papa kwa achi kan say and you need the support to the reset of the economy. And now omo ba na all can help papa can all can say bi unim Nigerian banks now declare profit. Ya ma contractor loan. Ya ma warning. Directors now foreign banks British bank bi na one credit ya problem say enko. Nti ya banks yi e na boa me ya kwan. E na boa we kwan so a untua. We are now the non performing now the go obi bank. Capital deficiency because non performing bi an affect capital deficiency. Masa there is a correlation between the two. Nti say what the cap na untua capital no conform. Nti se wo akwaji 35 billion road contractors me madam for baako kan masa me kodi nanim kwaji busia man $5 million okoye akwa be voter region as I'm speaking today the minister didn't pay him
you know the crowd is
where suban nti minia asem na ye kan ye politics ye de emi enya politicians Edi academia.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Nti yesra mo kwa mo ntu mo nkrofo fo. Se nie me bi ho a esei se nkofo brand e bi kure wu. Ma woman no ye fe wu. Na no ba ko bi yesi odware stroke. Well, na se wo de wo fi se ye. Na wo ye. Enye cost no maka kiro ye ntimi ntua. Nti de omo ka kura no. Saa omo je bi hokọ. De omo ye no 20. Na ba ko omo de be jam no papa ka wa ho no. Ombeti BBS your friend Ghana Amalgamated Bank. Wini madie. Oh, akwaji hwe. Open the subordinated capital. And now charging 19.1%. Oh, yare. Subword growth be say oh yare. Now, adwuma be na be ya we nya 19%. O ko to treasury be nko na be nya. O de ma contract, o de mo obi busi an wo nya ma wo. Now wo buy so a ye ya we ho mo ye no say. Omo so gi ye no no ko to bonds. All say bonds no na me ka magana for ate all ko ka tire ne senka bonds yi die reference na 2 billion pe over it say no this guy no too much and we are 9.1 and we are coping 2038 banks no tis our banks na me bobo di no wo mo konkon ho nti empire ye bo ni say papa mahama wo mpanim die fo na ye mpa se die be ye ma ye nkase ye gu na ye wu. Because you can't no.
Listen, yeah, okay, no. Oh my God, say, you said that your financial system is that your money any be cry.
Let's look forward. Looking forward.
Speculation it will go banks.
Yeah.
Speculation it will go banks.
Yeah.
Now, if the finance minister makes an announcement, say next month the go bank, what will happen to the bank?
Run down.
And that's how they applied and collapsed most of the banks. It is a yes, we started say UT Bank will collapse into be a friend say
your merchant bank.
No, your merchant bank. Overata bank, no. Data bank. Obianko Yinisika. What would happen?
You're confused that data bank is not.
What is
the investment bank? Dr. Kwachi, let me say, what change some now? Say no. In your estimation, as will be what being a central banking, nema home. A classic
people don't invest.
A war, sir, a bank say good and Scadu saying, and a comu, one who's Scadu, and said their comu say. Because utie ni ntia me particular about this and say as someone pay for kind say they are almost save customers deposit. They are save customers deposit. Say the one bought customers of deposit to home buying. Baby I drew no. Would you say that association say between Dr. Chiahenia and I say they say no Ghana for the no cry or no cry in Ukraine what they said that in papa. I then your basis say.
Okay. In fact, they say banking system no. After say a year restructuring, 2018-2019. Now domestic debt exchange, no more discount or more debt no. No so I as I road do capital. They say we show capital adequacy ratios as I perform. And now capitalization, recapitalization no cry ambassador can say you raise your didn't call 400 million. You see
120 to 400.
Yes. You see over time no because of the high rate of inflation, any depreciation no. Now sa a road in real terms. It is 400 million no. Just in real terms no. As well as and you banks the capital adequacy ratios and so reduce. And you want you be here another round of even recapitalization of the banks. You see, and one thing that is important is economy be stabilizing. Yeah, I can see stabilize the economy in any you see, and going forward, you know, and I feel I'm gonna talk about high non-performing loans. And so very high. In fact, they say ratio. No, the last year bank gonna publish are rising above even 20%. Non-performing loans.
21%.
Now, non-performing loans reflect the economy also. Well, if the economy is not doing well, then it means to fund the economy. No, they are not getting their monies back. No matter banks no back. And non-performing loans, do no so cost so high, and all writing off so and eat back into your capital. You know, and now ade ba ko nso we face say be say financial intermediation. This economy, no, financial intermediation is very low. In the sense, banking sector no rule as will play, no, and will take his savings now or channel savings into the economy, no. Yeah, in Ghana, yeah, rate here very low. In fact, the last year, me pick here, as of 2023, yeah, financial intermediation, you know, measured by private sector credit to yeah total GDP, you know, yeah, dear. 2020 9%. Senegal, ekra omo na omo ben Senegal ya omo de 31%. South Africa 91%. Malaysia aya de hotutu omo 117%. Ye de ye 9. It just economy no, financial sector no, and play role as will play in the economy. Uze yeti emamu a bibia obeye no just wow de wanga se osika opese okotoka just wow osika opese oye business a just wow osika opese okosi dan a just wow osika. That's just the financial sector and role band will play, you know. And these are the problems they say financial sector and cry is going to be facing another crisis which will require another round of recapitalization. You say IMF for extra fund the biato, say financial sector support facility. I know say I say more fund $15 billion or something or CDs. I'm say CDs. Sorry. I know say it's not fully funded because IMF for it here between World Bank here between Ghana government here between near the support of banks, no. And you say it's hanging. It's not fully funded. And Adeba see your consistency, your free BB safety nets in the banking system. In other words, no, as you putting in structures are protecting both the banks and then also customers. In other words, I'm talking about credit reference bureau. No, I can't answer no. Say you reinforce no, you activating no, and no bema say obi beji loan. There will be more information on the person and all that. And the bema don't performing loans no aba form. And I see a credit deposit insurance and so. I just no so no customers deposits no and also will be assured and will be safeguarded. And these are some of the things that you need. And then I must repeat say the de-indigenization of the banking sector that occurred in 2018, 2019, because you close to your own banks, now you merge them. We need to restore it because Ghanaian ownership of the banking sector is very critical.
But according to a report to be and say after what you see the bank say you close to banks, no, almost Bank of Ghana the Arabia by say. Banks in the Yagui and any other obituary mount to be cracked. I must say, I know I'm saying, may governor Namti say, or can we be say, we will not return to it. I mean, governor, or no, penny or down, no, I'll be to me a one. Okay, can't answer someone now. No, what does that mean? I didn't know Kita or the can't answer someone. No,
Oma we nkwana ya di adwumashe governance no office we. You can't make such statement. Because say you could take another committee, see and you won't what happened. Near free say viable. Because for instance, Gongo Ekasano. Law ni say Trobreno. Man 30 days. One van ma bet me aye. No man 7 or 16 or say or more power to, but you need to give reasons. Na say go be juma. Na law na wo beto session. One follow. He must be summoned to be a Britain, Kobeba Parliamentary Select Committee on Finance or Banking, and he will be interrogated. Say, I don't know can say, me say. No one needs to now the Okofa option 7. No. Oh, into one on the Casa idea, Croman go for Peter Mikasa. But Krobi Asono, the Finance Ministry, which the Bank of Ghana is supposed to be under, should be consulted before we make such statement. Because license restoration, you know. Yen cancer license restoration. You person even prevent it. It be creating CBM. So I need diagnostic studies of what happened. Where we solutions are. Ebeti me see. The omo kan mini enti ha na omo kan. Me ma on narratives omo kan. bad corporate governance. Related lending. Say related lending is insider dealing. And I'm okay can be calm. Corporate governance no. May can natural. May can pay fee. Your mom licenses and be training directors. And sign assistant of foreign banks, local banks and sign. Nine banks and sign. And now we enter will be a couple of Busiama bank babu. Other na Bank of Ghana when you wasn't there. When you wasn't there. If you say the echoes one is say the echoes one is say one a human bank is speciality. Unfortunately, your giant say to say Jamu Biahe. Because who corners a bank for now Busiani and Cherewa. We won't be any crowd. Because me, my year bidder as a general manager of credit. Omoba remedy see Omokona me yi. Intimate say, Mama, you say, the eco here now, but this Sania man buying. And then related lending, they be a conform because private sector banks, you be look Fidelity, card. The Quasi Ghanaian bank, near Kofa, Kenya Niba, no, I bet now, get $20,000. Hey,
a month.
Me coming, my meal, chef.
Yeah, I'm afraid about it.
No,
but now I got a Ghana. But there be no oh, how great is a Bank of Ghana? You phone to a Swiss phone to me come bank in the back one, come boo moro. Pameboni natural.
Assembly is worth noting. The Ambassador Eka about the bonds. Yeah, bonds. We pushed 5 million to bonds. Sikano, clean up. Yeah, the 5 million eco share bonds. But you'll be clear, we'll be a worker into the microfinance sector and in the savings and loan sector. And then you say out of the 347 of microfinance, I called down any 23 savings and loans. Majority of them, especially the ordinary lenders, they all received their money. KM says a few of the corporate ones that were shit, and I think some three corporate ones in the first. Ambassador bought 2 banks. When we moved the minimum capital up from 120 to 400 billion. Banks now Ghana there, NIB, NEADB. They were struggling.
They are still struggling.
Oh, I'm making reference in context. Say they struggle. If your minor push 2 billion there for them to be able to come up, because who catch ordinary the private sector people, not foreigners, they say gonna compare 400 million. Into who the Ghana there no first can shemwana. So who so there? It's who catch Agya Kwabena or no go compare camera. Now means way me Ghana there media me compare camera. So we did that. So all I'm saying is we are making reference to other banks in other jurisdictions. If you were in our early day finance, they will tell you there was a bank in the UK called the Barings Bank, which was the Queen's Bank. Exactly. The Barings Bank, at the end of the day, you turn $1. The whole bank, you turn for a symbolic amount of $1. The whole bank, because of what happened. The same thing was happening, and I referenced you to a book. We didn't pay attention. I'm telling you, said there but if you go through, the best way to rob a bank is to own one by William K. Black. You will see that whatever happened in the US, somebody studied it and replicated it. That's what I'm saying. Say, baby, I agree. Ambassador say me or Abomi say I was defending this thing. But you no kurano, you the underlying factors.
Sikado do send nanka banks in here.
Nyama we CC yen. Em say yen ya ti table ihu there. Ambassador no say be you no kurano there course nyama. But or how I wo hu ne say. Maybe me say sanka me na me te hwa. My approach would have been different. It doesn't mean that the banks, some of them were solvent. Moreover, he referenced, I'm saying, Doc referenced GN Bank, right? If you look at GN Bank, now at a point in time, was say buying the nika. Buying the buy out back can say. Me call GN Bank in Kobo Bosia. But say my Doc contract. no ashare around now Barclays Bank foreign banks no the entire anchor woman said they don't finance Ghana government.
It's
now me bank say Adade bank say me finance government project because you know so say project back one if you know the 3.9 or so billion now as at the time the Mahama government was leaving office now it was owed to contractors. Now so it was outstanding.
So they 35.
So and America said it was outstanding. And the banks, let me tell you, the banks had their own issues. I was trying to run away from going into the active defense of anybody. But the American said, Nyama ACC, made the margin, maybe I'm landing on this. Made the margin, they say, Ebi wa honumwa. Yempe wanka basic banks libi wo wa umpe wanka be kwa
the papa ko sindo wade example keto bi unim yemfa efie
eja ma mela nyama na matro no do
yemfa efie ntutu ye bibi kakra yemfa ne say ye wo ha nyina ye ko ba bi a ye nya mu afi ba bi a ade ye betumi anya ando bi asi ne bo say bo ye ganafo mo hia moa kro ni hia moa omani hia moa enti ani meboa said be your money begina even though akesefo no betumi abobo so moa na maji atena na dia ono eboa ma man na kọ nanim no so ono hia moa when the so man boa na first dia osi omo man no ene dia oso obeboa man no na obo man no that dia obo at the course of boying oman no wakọ ahochire mu no ede na kese oman no so ye Edeman the obo man na wakwa ho chire mu no
enti eja enura menya o topic no the dikan am chiro wo me book you which options were available to us. Option 1 ye enjoy banks na enkunkon ho said yes etie na ochina Dr. Tuahene call bank na okoyi sika enye ti say we no mu de no ana say Bank of Ghana na ye di tumi a hye ne nsa say onye hu bibi no be ye hu bibi no na be ya asem no but so ye hu bibi no so I my question is should we have waited for all of them to run under to become bankrupt and declare bankruptcy now our mining economy now relying on them no should fall flat and now say ye bibi say kobasa in trying to kill the mosquito na me be hwe Agya Kwabena asumu a mosquito ni si wafono or no mo na say be dan ni sutra ububefu abomi and that is what happened there see and say edru baby na our mine anya ho hwe ya the financial sector was collapsing.
The only shame in say be gunu nyina
and na make can say ne ye no na the operationalization of the process no assistant would have been different. And American, so let's not let people believe say, oh yes, sorry, that then the banks in I'm not trying to defend.
Customers are now you see you protect or deposit. Have you been able to protect their deposit?
No,
truly.
Oh, I know say a good percentage had
a good percentage.
All the money like you needed 25 billion, right?
25 billion.
And you needed 25 billion. The 25 billion now will be Gugana.
There be no here.
So what happened was
originally they started 9 billion.
9 billion, okay.
But you come here na president can so na no 21. Na kufu adu so aka
finance minister.
Yeah, me person me 15 point. No, but Sikana ye here
send and here and send yes. Originally no almost 9 billion.
After
going to deeper inside the Sika defense.
Ambassador near here says can say yeah the emphasis say yeah the protect it yeah the depositors and na akokodu 25 billion 25 billion also no yentumi entia wo deposit na 9 billion yentumi tia omoka entia kan ye
but she Agya Kwabena Yeah, come banking sector.
Exactly.
That
is what I'm
we have forgotten about the insurance industry and what has also happened there. Himself for capital accumulation, pensions and insurance is one of the major avenues for accumulating capital to the state. Now we entered into some private sector pensions. With the view say, Abebwa ama pensioners no in more dividends when they are going home. Has that been the case? Has that been the case? Some pensioners are even worse off from the reforms. Now with the insurance, Nanka, all state properties, were insured with the state insurance company. You know, when you started working in that city. Now we diverted this major source of revenue to the state to for that first data bank and enterprise. It is Sika our say eco government. No. Say the money do can no correct. Their Sika our say about true pensions. Yeah, they are private sector pensions. Wamusu into me investment be appreciable pensioners better off, right? It's just like diverting government resources to private sector. Na kaya in the pensions private sector and womu ejuma na kosindomu ye womu finance roles ni ade na kebeka say ebewa. What about the insurance? Agya Kwabena, what about the insurance? Danuna this my friend STC
Nana
Komia proudly sitting on television can say wokoji loan we ADB dia koto buses. One of the conditions is he must insure the buses with enterprises.
Not state insurance.
No.
STT, State Transport Corporation. Koto cars and sister or insurance with State Insurance Corporation. Number
and I can tell you, sir, all major government insurance has been taken away from SIC to enterprises. One person. Now, unya usikano. For that, unya usikano. Would you be a bank or a friend in Liberia? I didn't go mining. One person, what for insurance? Who call a pensions reforms na now? All the fund managers, the bank and fund managers. Nipa bakun. Now that they will tell say Nigerian president, Mr. Dr. Nigerian president, faced with the situation, say, we will collapse Zenith Bank. And a commercial bank in Nigeria, one could collapse. Abraham, they are Ghana, no, and your papa. So don't come and sit here and say, oh, as if everything is all right. And say, see, they yesterday say, experts like you, yes, Ramu. You have to come in.
But come in. What was that from?
I'm serious with that. I'm saying.
Yes, serious.
Say, you be economic forum. It is not about NDC. It is not about NDC or MPP. It is about the survival of this country. What you say? Enti, one warning you say in there. Your best say. Making himself available for use by the state. Now, the year doing there, go back to your motherland and save our motherland.
Okay.
Okay.
One doctor, Jonathan Esiama, ono na governor Johnson Esiama, almost say one more than the Bank of Ghana. Opposition need to MPP for a press conference. Cracker say they don't need that man there because one said Dr. Kwachi, one now Bank of Ghana, some Papa no was swim between the year and Jumano. And now said, dear, one more I try and some fun on us or more cano. When you have so good or more can one.
Okay. In fact, Dr. Siama, they say, Obi between me dinner one dance here. Okay. Because Virginia, meaning the Bank of Ghana, precise department in Virginia. me di 20 years or
Bank of Ghana.
Bank of Ghana.
Wow.
Me adwuma 20 years or no yeah me di ni ja ho sa ne ade. And he's somebody he's gone through the mill. In fact, Bank of Ghana so share history a governance no kind no nanka obia rise through the system. Now obey governor, director of research but they do bribi no na political interference he be mu obehwe na de obi fi outside. No do na ba. Enti we no de ye nim no say or rise through the system to the top. Why deputy governor before? You know, and any major portfolios or banker, no financial stability, monetary policy, he's been in charge, you know, so a year position normally raise about the integrity in the case about now what minimum say minimum the details of charges are but most of it is centered around liquidity supporter banks Bank of Ghana provided to these banks apparently so small portfolio not just in charge but it is also a fact to say ansana provide liquidity support to any banks the management the bank of the bank together they all come together so individually or take that decision mostly a collective decision no they were quite execute but the fact is that the bank echo assess who say here support Bank of Ghana and banks that relationship support sometimes a short window just one night days they have various types of because banks the nature of one say do now customers now withdraw a lot of money from them in fact offshore banks movement of cash in the banking system towards the weekend uncle for baby yiskako from the following week now it's a scanner come back and occasionally they need that kind of support of course it do bribia one more problem na long term tina support back but the whole management they take a decision as to whether we should continue to support the bank or not until you want to put all the blame on just one individual. Maybe there were some mistakes in the sense that we are saying supervision, because intensify, reinforce supervision of the banks, and also a collective, you see. And maybe I have no doubt to say, he is very qualified, and then the problem I almost raised about, and you don't take his decision, a collective decision, and of course. The Attorney General has decided, say, Ophelia say, that he doesn't have a case. After all, this case had dragged on for how many years? 7 years, and you couldn't conclude it. How much longer? Government expects a new government, but how much longer does it cost? Or no, he has his own right. The case must come to a conclusion while leading a normal life. It cannot go on forever. And I am happy to say nobody has questioned his competency. I know nobody has said that. They are talking about a case. And as far as competency is concerned, I have no doubt to say he's the right person at the right time. Okay. And the case is also there. If you say you can't put it on just one individual, a collective decision. And I'll take care. All right.
What do you Adade? Muna mo raise some issues Dr. Maybe on the party.
Dr.
Siama. Mo say on your qualified. And then dan say this week members of parliament cry a press conference ho. Am mention South. Em say be na e kasa what say Dr. Kwachi Kanya ono onimu no. Ono na tena for so many years. Any kwadru a de abono se wono na bia why we ntino Dr. Kwachi just say enye ono nku agina si eye board agina si ntimi fa de so anu nkoso ba ko fon say ɛyɛ no anti mo nyina so paa mo de gina so de ka so won sen fatanti no mo de koma IMF na sefo no ene de wo hi
okay
we say Bank of Ghana for no so almost my government 2022 a lot of liquidity support collectively, you know. And also why?
Okay.
Yeah, because one judgment was that some of my government to save the economy. That is the reason. Yeah, I see save the economy. Sana Bank of Ghana and so on so fair. They felt to say collective DCIC save the banks. It is the same.
The Dr. Siama, I'm saying any qualification and the opposition challenged. Qualification in terms of academics, you know. He has a PhD in economics. Why he at Bank of Ghana for way more than 20 years here. So in terms of academic qualification, there I can quote and unquote say he is even overqualified. Why he with the experience and everything. Said the issues I raising here and say, maybe a chairman or a deputy governor. Now ye de Juma be sharing in say only. Sa Juma na SSA odi no ho asem na ya ka firi anopa be pim sabri say sabre no no hwe say banks na some of these banks me no ye ma wom ska na ye ma wom sika no ye onu ne department na Juma na ye de ahye ne nsa no responsibility say be make sure say sika na ye de ma wom na be ye Juma nyama e fa no mo ne ye say o ye de ketwa ahye won sa na wentumi anhwe so a eye den na sese de ye de kakraka na ma na kwadu no I'm not talking about kwadu a ye de ball no na eno nti no wo court no that's not obisa me say de nti na ye raise issue no na me yi ano enti no sa adwuma na ye ma ne kese e chen kane no eno edi kan de to so mienu ni say adwuma ketwa na ye di ma no enye governor adwuma o eye deputy governor onkonkɔhwɛ banks ne so adwuma na saa adwuma ketwa na wentumi anhwɛ so no e ma o da bi me ka obisa me question me yi ano wo de me abetna adaka mu nti asa na obisa me no statement no na me ka okay ma o mwaye no nkyɛ de mi gidi ni je mi personally mi de to so mienu a eno nti eni say ye de statement nature say eni say ye de bibia eso saa ma no eni say saa adwuma na wo no wanhwe so anye ne yie no e ma oman no ehwere sika nti ogina akunu say Obama oman no ahwere sika will fully consume financial loss to the ye kan ba kwa no pay so no na on term nipa enkosi banks ne so say ya ma sika so that is the statement but now I will come to the substantive issue. The issue no say ye nyina ya can say ye oman for me I have said it here about 3 weeks ago, right, another 2 weeks say me ko akosa line akoto aba my MPP na ye say doc na oye in charge oye MPP hwan nti ato aba ma no mato ama no na ye be pa no so ye Bank of Ghana governor or ye minister for finance na say sa minister for finance ya gina mi ma bato no so ayiu na ukotena ho na ukodi nsem hunu doc me betna and defend you one and defend you two because in my opinion me my Ghana ye year e be coming say banks ya ye kan ho asem ano pay na banks yi call under and na your economy ne crash ya kombe me a chen doc because e bia na ni bottom e wa chen me de what did me mfato ho mfato ho engineer me engineer o rentri ho 70 years e say hia me wa asie ho na say hia me chen nipa na ono te soro ho na bia ono sa abri ama no V8 free ni car ni die free obi de be to odwa na nsen no na obi ahu oman ni nyina sheki obi personal emoluments be to odwa na oman ni nyina awoso enti sa nipa no na wanko ye adwuma yie wo ho ye SIC wanko ye adwuma ni yie wo SIC no ko di nsem mu no why should I come and defend the person? It is point na ye ni say o man ni ye ndia sa niam ya ka ho asem anopa nyina ye efa ye Ghana for ye hu say ye even restore all these banks me say whatever happened here has happened elsewhere ma kan be empre na ni say ya hwe ni ye na ye say oh obi anko saa ye de obi a license amano on san ko sha ase enye adwuma me say obi share da so obedi Ghana ne Ghana
yes baby
na ye de ba obi asa
yeah so me can say
earlier no can say
de mo obi asa keke
exactly
me de mo obi no so obi ye nti akoko ba asa no ye be hwe se bi onye sa na me ba
na say ye no kran so say obi edi o man ni dream afa sa kwan no so say me reference na
ye kan no ade pa na wo ho ntia me say enye press conference na mo say press conference am ye na wotwe na asam bisisu dia say baka ho asam kan sana press conference yi esan baye ade pa asam na ketwa na want me anya ni nti yes
no your question na mo aye but the entire press conference no ma men kan kire that's why me man ti ase the raising issue na me say emre bi atwa mu busumi baako ye wo February nti busumi mienu ani e ko ni miensa so ko ni nine so da bia ye be hia pono yi ho u be hia NDC ni bia de omo kan ni say obi adi bone owura Kufuado aye ne den wa clear
ye be kan wo asam kakra
enti ye ka ya sam nyina ya sam ne tintin ni tietie nyina ya jama manu nsi
sesai
ni say enura ya obi de ya bebo no kwadu ye nya hwehwe na asam ye nya mfa no ko ba bia report bia bo Kwame Adade din enti no ye nko bua no kumfo say Kufuado amua no kumfo a wo ye clear agent no na e fa asam we ba
sa
enti clear agent no ko because papa no gina akono o gina court na wo gina no awura no ye nya ni na asam ya clear
masam ketua ba ko ne say
ankaya nya
na say nya case kra wo ye ha ye krom ha adenti na mo kan say ye be reporter my IMF ye be reporter my adenti IMF what has IMF got
papa we no go ba yo o no timi je me ka NDC for e na ko fa ba ye die enti e ba say ye be ko akoka che
IMF omo ye school masters
say wa dani who headmaster
who
die enti e ba say papa we ko fa ba ye
Apaya ko she o
2 years
ko she
2 years ago Kenoforiata Kruya ko fa ni niama ko parliament omo no mu twro krata ko IMF amebwa enti the American say ye de ye ho asem si oman yi
adade me pache wo
I'll reference the specific reference specific issue na ma ka che omo na ekobo ye nko adu wo IMF the American is mecha kisses here it happened me 2 minutes we go round about I have forgotten the specific case but mumwa reported that obi say one year papa meko akọ report wa wo de wo say meko akọ ka che head master
obi ye bi so bi internet tit for tat
wo say obi ye clear agent yes say we clear agent and na he ne kasa no na doctor he ne say wanka attorney general making decision you say the president is not aware cabinet is not aware
Dr. Tuahene asem yi
meba
so what
specific case
uhunu Ojen say wo mu why bibi na say nya say o mu so de mo kan na say so etie
de wo kan etie but you see won't be prosecute obi to say Jesus baba bi na no